Well, today marks the most important day in the world. We have the American elections taking place, and everybody, not only in the United States, not only in Canada, but around the world, are waiting at the edge of their seats to see what can happen. And since this is a Canadian channel, we are going to be mostly talking about Canadian stuff. But obviously, I can't deny the fact that Trump is, I mean, everyone's waiting for him to win and get back into office. And in fact, there's a interview that we're going to take a look at later on in this video where the leader of the opposition in Canada, Pierre Poilievre, actually gives a bit of an endorsement to Donald Trump without actually giving the endorsement straight up. But it's my interpretation that when he's asked who he would rather win, Donald Trump or Kamala, he leans towards Donald Trump without actually saying Donald Trump. So we're going to be taking a look at that later on. We're going to be taking a look at a lot of other stories as well as, speaking of the American elections and just the ongoing kind of election interference that's happened and, ballots showing up and stuff. There's a recent development with the British Columbia elections that just took place not too long ago, where almost 1,000 ballots have just recently been discovered. So yeah, it wouldn't be elections without talking about surprise ballots. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. And I do want to encourage you guys to also visit the link down below in the description to get yourself a sticker pack. You can get this pack of stickers right here. Only scams, Freeland on a broom, Trudeau must go, keep calm, never vote liberal, and stop the web. And you can get a 15% discount by using code sunshine. Again, this is linked down below in the description. And without further ado, let's get into this video. So you follow me here on YouTube, and I got multiple different accounts. Another one where I'm going to be streaming Question Period later on today on House of Canada. But for those who don't follow me on X, let me know. Let me give you an example as to why you probably should follow me on X. Again, it's MR Sunshine Baby, or you can just click the X link down below in the description. The Toronto Star, which is a major Canadian newspaper, said Donald Trump is going to win the 2024 US presidential election. And here's why, which is a very out of character post for them to make, considering they are extremely left leaning. And I actually got the top comment here saying, did you guys get hacked? So I'm pretty on the ball with my witty comments on X, but more specifically with Elon Musk's post yesterday, where he said he's going to do a digital town hall on X. And I said, can you buy Canada? And as you can see, I outperformed all other major accounts here, and thousands of people have seen this, and a lot of people are all kind of on board with, hey man, it might not be that bad of an idea if Elon Musk bought X. But let's get out of the funny stuff and let's get into the serious stuff. You may or may not have seen this post here by conservative, what was supposed to be premier of British Columbia, but conservative candidate John Rustad, who said Elections BC has revealed that a ballot box containing 861 votes went entirely uncounted, along with 14 unreported votes in Surrey, Guildford, a crucial riding that narrowly won by the NDP. If I'm not mistaken, at one point they were actually winning by, when it got overturned, they won by 14 votes. That's kind of crazy. While I'm not disputing the final outcome pending remaining judicial recounts, it's clear that mistakes like these severely undermine public trust in our electoral process. This is an unprecedented failure by the very institution responsible for ensuring the fairness and accuracy of our elections. This is why I'm calling for an independent review to ensure that these types of mistakes will never happen again. Democracy is too sacred to allow trust to erode to the lows we see today. And that's just such an incredible precursor for kind of what's about to happen in America. No matter which side wins, you're going to have outrage from the losing side in a way that we have never seen before, that may actually spark riots across the country and I don't want to say riots around the world, but I don't know if it'll be enough to throw America into another civil war. But it seems like, the West has never been more divided right now. And when you find things like this where uncounted ballots just appear and that could potentially overturn the overturned election, it's like, whoa, man, what the heck are we doing? And with America, I mean, I've seen that movie from the last election that they made. I think it was called 2000 Mules. Everybody's going to be watching, and no matter what, I think there's going to be an insane amount of controversy. But for anyone who wants to see the actual article here, Global News shared it on X, and Elections BC says it discovered that a ballot box containing 861 votes wasn't counted. And then there's a all-female panel talking about the election in BC, and we're just going to watch literally a second so you can see how serious this panel is.
Okay, so did the results surprise you?
Okay, so yeah, no, nobody's watching that. Sorry. Anyways, let's get on to the next story here. Canadian truck driver Jagmeet Singh was allegedly caught in Michigan with more than 370 pounds of cocaine with a street value of $16.5 million. That is, you can't even write a movie like that good. That's craziness. That's the state of the world right now. And then we have to talk about what happened with, for those that don't know, there was a Hindu temple that was infiltrated by Khalistani separatists in Canada, where they actually broke into the temple, and it's sparking mass outrage. Let's just go over this video here.
Regional police say 3 people have been arrested and charged following that violent incident at a Hindu temple in Brampton on Sunday. Social media posts on the weekend show demonstrators holding banners in support of a separate Sikh country called Khalistan, clashing with others, including some holding India's national flag. The incident happened at the Hindu Sabha Mandir in Brampton. Police say they're investigating several acts of unlawfulness connected to the protests and did not immediately provide details about the suspects or charges. The violence, which comes during a tense period in Canada-India relations, has drawn condemnation from several dignitaries. Yesterday, Canada's Prime Minister put out a statement saying the acts of violence at the Hindu Sabha Mandir in Brampton today are unacceptable. Every Canadian has the right to practice their faith freely and safely. Thank you to the Peel Regional Police for swiftly responding to protect the community and investigate this incident. And this morning, the Prime Minister of India took to X to write, "I strongly condemn the deliberate attack on a Hindu temple in Canada." He goes on to say, "We expect the Canadian government to ensure justice and uphold the rule of law."
जो कनाडा में हमला हुआ है उसके लिए हम सब लोग सड़कों पे आके रोष मार्च कर रहे हैं और हम जो सनातनियों पे मंदिर पे जो हमला
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten so bad anyways, to the point where you have Modi, who the freaking leader of India, who's like, hey man, you better stop this in Canada because we're not going to stand for it. And then you've got NDP leader here in Canada, Jagmeet Singh, who chimes in, and just take a look at his reaction, how it quickly changes when the reporter asks the question.
Clashes at the Hindu temple in Brampton. Liberal MP Chandra Arya said on Twitter that Khalistani extremists have infiltrated the Canadian political apparatus and law enforcement agencies. He said they get a free pass in Canada.
By the way, when you listen to this, just know that Jagmeet Singh has gone on the record on mainstream media here in Canada, on CTV, and he supports Khalistani separatists, people that are labeled as terrorists in India. He supports their right to come together and continue their narrative here in Canada.
Prime Minister Modi weighed in, said Canada needs to uphold the law and order. Elizabeth May just said people need to leave their domestic grievances behind when they come to Canada. Can you respond to all of this?
There's a lot to respond to. First, I'll just start with just saying that the violence is just wrong. Unequivocally, the violence that we saw was absolutely wrong, particularly at places of prayer. That is just wrong. That should not be happening. People can protest, should be free to protest. It should not be happening where people are attending to pray or attending to find peace, and to have violent clashes there is just completely wrong. But I do want to take a moment to talk about Mr. Arya. This is someone who constantly repeats the lines of the Indian government A government, mind you, that is under allegations that they've engaged in a campaign of terror impacting Canadians that involved shootings, that involved deaths, that involved threats to Canadians. So it is very problematic that an elected Canadian official is parroting the lines of a foreign government that engaged in allegations of serious violence and terror against Canadians. So he should stop. We should be putting Canadians first, putting our country first, and not parroting the lines of a foreign government. What I expect leaders to do is to bring down tensions, not escalate and not drive divisions with conspiracy theories. What we need to see is end to the violence, and we need to see a firm stance against the Indian government. We need to be united in our condemnation of violence happening at places of prayer.
Yeah, I mean, Jagmeet Singh has been outed many, many, many times as not being loyal to Canada. His allegiance is pledged elsewhere. But again, that's my own personal opinion, and I would absolutely love to know yours. And then next up, we're going to take a look at Pierre Poilievre, and he does this one-on-one interview with a reporter, which eventually the reporter will ask him, hey, who do you want to win the American election? Do you want it to be Trump or Harris? And I mean, he doesn't come out right and say it, but I feel like everything is leading towards, him supporting Donald Trump.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has written to the province's premiers asking them to eliminate sales taxes on new homes sold for under $1 million. The letter follows Poilievre's pledge last week that if he becomes prime minister, he'll axe a federal sales tax on new homes sold for under $1 million. The Conservatives estimate that this would reduce the cost of an $800,000 home by $40,000 and would spur construction of another 30,000 homes per year. And for more on this, we are joined live by federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Good afternoon. And let's start with this, just going along with this letter. What is the pledge? How is this going to help those families that you say need help?
Well, we need to axe the tax on new homes to bring down the price. After 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP Liberals, housing costs have doubled. They've risen more in Canada than in any other G7 country. Vancouver is now the third and Toronto the 10th most overpriced housing market in the world, worse than Manhattan, London, England, and countless other places with more money and people and far less land. Doesn't make sense. The leading cause of higher home prices is government bureaucracy and taxes. A third of the cost is direct taxes alone. So I'm saying let's axe the taxes on homes. I'll get rid of the GST, the federal sales tax. That will lower prices by as much as 50 grand. And then I'm calling on the premiers to do the same at a provincial level. If that happened in Ontario, it would lower home prices by $106,000 or about $5,000 in lower annual mortgage payments. It would also stimulate 60 or 70,000 additional home building units every year that would further increase prices, increase affordability and decrease prices. So this is a common sense plan to axe the tax and build the homes.
Okay, and along with that, you estimate that there will be $2.1 billion of revenue for government. How do you get to that number? How do you equate that when you're cutting tax?
So to be clear, I'll give you the math. Over 4 years, I expect getting rid of the federal GST would mean the federal government would lose about $16 billion in revenue. However, I plan to cut $8 billion of useless bureaucracy for 2 housing programs that, by the government's own admission, haven't built any homes. And the other $8 billion I will make up by simply taking the government's own data that shows getting rid of the GST would stimulate about 30,000 extra homes built every year. And the business and workers that build those homes obviously contribute through their income tax. They would contribute an extra $2.1 billion a year, not because of higher taxes, but because there'd be more jobs and more income for those businesses and workers. So that's how we would pay for this common sense tax cut to build the homes.
And what about those families, especially here in the GTA, where, getting that larger house for their growing family, it's going to be over $1 million.
Yeah. I think we need to look at that. There are some exorbitant markets after 9 years of Trudeau. You know, it's funny, Mr. Savage, if you and I had been talking 9 years ago before Trudeau and we mentioned $1 million home, we'd say, wow, that must be a castle on the top of a hill somewhere, because that's what $1 million used to buy you. But you're right, now, after Trudeau doubled the costs, now there are a lot of homes that are not even in that range. So what I'm saying is, for starter homes, it should be completely tax-free. But down the road, we might have to look at how we deal with exorbitant markets like Toronto, Kitchener-Waterloo, Vancouver, et cetera, that have burst over the $1 million mark for an average home, unbelievably, after 9 years of Trudeau.
Okay, now let's switch gears here for a little bit. You know, in this letter you say, as Prime Minister. So, as Prime Minister, you know, there's a big election south of the border. Whose administration do you think you'll have a better relationship, which will also be better for Canada, Harris or Trump?
Well, I think the question we have for Canadians is which would be the better administration for our own country, Poilievre or Trudeau? And obviously the answer is Poilievre. After 9 years of Trudeau with 3 different presidents, remember he had Obama, Trump, and Biden. What has happened? $450 billion of our investment money has poured out of Canada into the United States. We used to get more U.S. investment from them than they got from us, and now that is reversed. $500 billion of our investment dollars building mines, pipelines, businesses that pay American workers. I want our money back. So my number one priority, whether it's Harris or Trump, is one, to drive a hard bargain with Washington on softwood lumber and on Buy America to get fair and equal access for our construction, lumber, cement, steel, aluminum businesses so that we can get the jobs and the money back. Second,
there's no way that Pierre Poilievre would ever want to deal with Kamala Harris. She is like the female version of Justin Trudeau, narcissistic, out to lunch, incompetent, a puppet, for crying out loud, a puppet for, you know, the bigger forces at bay. There's no way. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is a strong leader, arguably one of the most, strongest presidents that America has ever had. And that's going to be a tough uphill battle for Pierre to, stand his ground against Donald Trump. Now, this is something that Justin Trudeau and the failed Trudeau cabinet, they've gloated about, that they have stood up to Donald Trump in the past, but that's not at all the reality. In fact, you're going to hear Pierre talk about that in just a moment.
I'm going to cut the taxes and the red tape so that we bring businesses, paychecks, and jobs back to Canada. Right now, Canadian workers make $20,000 less than their American counterparts. They get 55 cents of investment for every investment dollar an American worker gets. Why? Because of Trudeau's destructive economic policies that send our money, jobs, and businesses south. I will be cutting the taxes, balancing the budget, eliminating the red tape, and negotiating a hard bargain so that we can bring home our jobs and our businesses.
Okay, some of the items that you just touched on, they tie directly into NAFTA. So we have to talk about that, because we all saw what happened with Canada with NAFTA under Trump.
Yeah, it was a disaster. Trump steamrolled over Trudeau, and Trudeau backed down. I mean, I was so embarrassed when Trump said that Trudeau gave generously in those negotiations. Why would he give generously? Why would he sign a deal that keeps in place Buy America, that discriminates against our cement, concrete, steel, aluminum, and other construction workers? Why would he sign a deal that allows America to keep in place and now double the tariffs on softwood lumber? Harper got us exemptions from both Buy America and softwood lumber in a matter of days. And Trudeau's had 9 years and 3 presidents, and we're getting hit harder than ever. I will drive
No, you have to be a strong leader and stand up for the country that you're representing when it comes to that stuff. And I believe that Pierre Poilievre will stand very firm. And that's something that Donald Trump, at the end of the day, will respect.
hard bargain, standing up for our workers, our jobs, and our business. I'll bring it home for this country.
Okay, we have to wrap.
And that's how it should be. And I think that other, strong leaders, they respect other strong leaders. And Pierre Poilievre, he's going to have a massive, he's going to have a lot of negative inheritance, right? A lot of problems that he's taking over for Canada, and he's going to have an uphill battle in terms of trying to fix our reputation. But I think that he is ultimately a really good candidate to take on that job. But that's my own personal opinion, and I would absolutely love to know yours. And next up, we're going to take a look at this video here that talks about how Canadians can't afford houses. In fact, mortgage delinquencies are rising with Canadians. Yeah. Good job, Freeland. We're the top G7 country for mortgage delinquencies, maybe.
Analysts say there's a ticking time bomb in housing. A big increase in the number of mortgage delinquencies looms as households renew into higher rates this year and next. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says the proportion of households that have missed payments on their mortgage continued to rise in the second quarter of this year. And this uptick mirrors climbing delinquency rates for other types of debt.
So we would see that for credit cards, we would see that for auto loans, we would see that for lines of credit, for example. And we know that Canadians will always prioritize mortgage payments before, other debt payments or even other expenses. And so now what we're seeing is that mortgage delinquency rates have been increasing.
Now, it is important to note that mortgage delinquency rates plummeted to all-time lows in 2022, and they remain well below 2019 levels. But the country's National Housing Agency is expecting a sharp rise. The number of delinquencies and defaults may be limited by how much more the Bank of Canada cuts its benchmark interest rate and yields relief for variable debt.
The number one cost for a home is government. Government bureaucrats, government taxes. Getting rid of the GST on new home builds will stimulate 30,000 additional homes built every single year.
Housing affordability continues to be a national concern, and Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre, who is gearing up for an election, is calling on provincial and territorial leaders to axe the sales tax on new homes under $1 million. He, in turn, is pledging to drop the federal portion if he becomes prime minister.
Yeah, and that is going to do more for Canadians than what Justin Trudeau has done in almost 9 years. Then we're going to take a look at this extremely cringe video by Harry Potsmoker here, who does this old sketch. I remember this was popular once upon a time, where you had celebrities sit there and basically unveil what the top Google searches are.
What is a pollution cap? Well, it's a new mechanism that we're adding to our arsenal of measures to fight climate change in Canada. And basically what we're doing with that is putting a cap, literally, on the amount of pollution that the oil and gas sector can emit on any given year, and that cap will go down over time. So it's a way to make sure that regardless of what happens in the sector in terms of production, the pollution levels go down so that Canada can't make its contribution to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, not just in our country, but to contribute to the international efforts to fight climate.
Yeah, that is super cringe. And my response actually was this: what is gaslighting? The answer, when Liberals talk. Is gaslighting a crime in Canada? The answer is yes. Oh my goodness, man. That guy, there's something wrong with him. There's something absolutely wrong with him. And speaking of wrong with him here, he had a meltdown when approached by reporters at a recent press conference. For those that missed it, let's just do this quick recap to finalize this video.
Air and disinformation on the part of the Conservative movement in Canada, whether it's Pierre Poilievre, whether it's Danielle Smith, whether it's Scott Moe, pretending that climate change isn't happening in the face of mounting climate impacts and dramatic impacts on the lives of Canadians, but also cost to the Canadian economy. They will continue doing stupid things, and we will continue focusing on helping Canadians to create a robust economy, good jobs, and work to protect the environment.
You just said Danielle Smith and Scott Moe do, quote, stupid things, unquote. How confident are you that you can get Alberta and Saskatchewan to comply with these regulations, given that you just called them stupid?
I didn't call them stupid. I said they were doing stupid things. There's a difference. Number one. And number two, I mean, it's not optional to comply with federal regulations. And it's not the provinces that will have to comply. It's the companies in those provinces that will have to comply.
You just said industry doesn't like regulations and that you've had some difficulty in the past. How confident are you that you can enforce these regulations and make sure that they comply?
Well, if facing difficulties was a criteria not to do something in our business, I don't know what we would do. Probably not a whole lot. Difficult things are difficult, and fighting climate change is difficult, and it takes political courage. And I'm proud to be part of a group of people who believe strongly that we need to do that for the future of our kids and grandkids, for the future of jobs, for the future of the economy. This is the right thing to do.
In Ottawa, Minister Guilbeault said, let me pull up the quote, speaking about your government, they will continue doing stupid things and we will continue doing things to help Canadians. What is your response?
Absolutely not. He is not helping Canadians. He is harming Canadians. 150,000 job losses, the loss of production, which means the loss of revenue, not only for us, but for the rest of the country. An increase in cost on every family's budget to the tune of $419 per month, each and every month. This is not responsible policy. This is a vendetta. Like, he has a deranged vendetta against Alberta. It's very obvious. We've been watching it for some time. He's trying to find a way to get around what the Constitution says. He even acknowledged that they are not permitted to do a production cap because it is natural resources fall under provincial jurisdiction. Somehow he thinks he's going to sneak one in and we won't notice and the rest of the country won't notice. Well, we've noticed, and we think the courts will notice. He cannot do this.
What an absolute weirdo. All right, folks, that is the end of the video here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It would be very much appreciated. And I've shared my opinion throughout the video, and I would absolutely love to know yours if you haven't yet already shared it. I look forward to seeing you all later on today with updates, especially with election results as they start to unravel. Peace and love, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.